put so many creatures in fighting games. If it has limbs, it can fight. If it doesn't have limbs, it can probably still fight with enough creativity. They put a car in a fighting game once. So when I tell you that dinosaurs have appeared on fighting game rosters, you're probably like, yeah, okay. They don't appear often, but when they do, it's either iconic or just a game with a bunch of kaiju-style characters. So for this video, we're going over the various dinosaurs in fighting games. Main criterion, they have to be a dinosaur, whether it's one that existed or one that's just made up because it's a video game. We'll also accept characters with a strong dinosaur theme as long as they really embrace it. And joining me is the biggest dinosaur fan I know, who's actually my own mom.
Hi everyone! As a super fan of all the Jurassic Park movies and a longtime fan of dinosaurs going way back to the 70s TV series Land of the Lost, I'm happy to be back to discuss this topic.
Now let's chomp through the top 10 dinosaurs in fighting games. Number 10, Rimgal from Star Gladiator. Star Gladiator is Capcom's 3D weapon-based fighting game from the mid-90s. It takes place in the year 2348, so it goes sci-fi crazy by having it take place in outer space with characters after plasma power, and there's also government and war and other stuff in the plot, but the lore was never in your face, so I just saw it as that intergalactic fighting game. Capcom got to go nuts with whatever sci-fi designs they had in the reserves, so with aliens and robots and space fighters, why not throw a dinosaur in there? Rimgal is a velociraptor with a club, but he's slightly less random than he appears. He was actually a human scientist named Michael who had to flee during a revolution. When he fled to an area with a Nobel Peace Prize winning scientist, he thought he could work with the man in a new life. However, that scientist was actually mad and did human experiments, injecting Michael with dino DNA, turning him into a velociraptor. He then put a microchip in Michael for obedience and renames him Rimgal because Michael would be too silly of a name for a dinosaur. There is technically the lingering plotline of him trying to fight off the mind control, but as mentioned, the lore is in supplementary materials and not really in your face in the game, outside of arcade mode endings, so I just thought he was a dinosaur with a skull on a stick because the future has no rules on extinction. His moveset is what you'd expect. He bites and he swings his club, but with the combo system, he has a very triumphant swing as if he's leading the baton in a marching band, not as savage as I expected. Oh, and he can breathe fire. I don't know why, but I'm not surprised at that development. I was more curious why they gave him a bone club.
Cool looking club, and he knows how to use it. I'd love to borrow it on Halloween to scare away the mischief makers who try to grab all the candy. And his dino flame and kicks aren't bad either.
When Star Gladiator got a sequel, Rimgal was one of the few original characters strangely left off that roster. Like basically everyone else was brought back, but they said screw you specifically to Rimgal, so I wonder why he got the shaft. Regardless, he might have not been my character of choice when playing this game, but I'm always going to appreciate when a fighting game includes what seems like a random freaking dinosaur on the roster. Number 9, King of Dinosaurs from the King of Fighters. There's a luchador in the Fatal Fury and King of Fighters games named T-Zok, or the Griffin Mask, who has a high-flying wrestling moveset, complemented by his signature bird mask. He's a stand-up guy who takes joy in helping out kids in need. There's also a character in the King of Fighters series named King of Dinosaurs, who has the same body type, strength, and voice as T-Zok, and some of his moves. However, they're two completely different characters. That's what King of Dinosaurs says, so that's all the confirmation I need. Plus, this guy's moves have dinosaur theming, while T-Zok's are bird themed. See? Different. For actual context, King of Dinosaurs is T-Zok's heel persona in the ring, but because he dons a mask in any fight, he denies the personas are related for the love of the act. With birds and dinosaurs being distant cousins, I can see why he went with a dinosaur for the villain persona. A bird is an animal of flight that can ride the wind, while a T-Rex is more grounded and aggressive. I also like how simplistically he converts everything to being a dinosaur theme beyond the appearance. Many of his moves return from his T-Zok moveset, like his suplexes or spinning air grabs, but instead of having a wind or flight themed name, it goes for a straightforward dinosaur or extinction name, like Dinobuster or Extinction Hurricane. I also like how his bio now states that his dislikes are just things that might have killed the dinosaurs, like meteors or the Ice Age, but when he was T-Zok, his dislikes were not things that birds hated, he just hated dirty fighters, so he really went hard on the theme for this persona.
What a powerful physique he has. The dinosaur mask really enhances his bad guy persona, and the dinosaur claws on his wrestling boots and gloves are a nice touch. He's got great dynamic and crushing hold attacks. I love his hard knockdowns and dino bite. He is slow moving though. I think I could outrun him. To run away from him, that is.
As expected, his new attacks that are not just renamed in this persona use the new parts of his costume. He has a few extra claw slashes in there and a lot of biting. There's an energy to this persona that I like. He may not hit the emotional beats of T-Zoc, but he's full of camp and can drink through a straw with the mask still on. How does he do that? Maybe he really does turn part dinosaur with the costume.
Whoa, this is gonna hurt! KO! Player 1 wins!
Number 8, Reptar and Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl. Not only did Nickelodeon make their own Smash Bros. Style game, but it got a sequel, and the mechanics were pretty solid. I feel like they were really aiming this game at my demographic, since nearly all these characters on the roster are from the 90s and 2000s cartoons, even having their acquired series like Ninja Turtles being based on the old 80s series rather than the newer versions of the series that aired on Nick in the mid-2010s. I think they still aired a lot of new cartoons after 2009. Where's Harvey Beaks? I'll do a roster analysis of this game when it comes up in another video. As for the topic of this list, the rep chosen from Rugrats was Reptar, who is a character the babies liked in movies based on Godzilla, but they usually just referred to him as a dinosaur since the term kaiju did not seem to be mainstream in the US by the early 90s. Like Godzilla, Reptar was usually portrayed as a hero, with origins as a villain if the story called for it. So putting the fighting dino monster in the fighting game makes a lot of sense. I don't know if they opted for him as the series rep since his potential moveset seemed easier than making one of the main character babies fight, but his character design gives a lot of room for creativity. They technically don't even have to size him down from being a giant monster, since there were iterations of him in the show where he was human-sized, like as a robot toy or the Reptar on Ice show, which I specifically remember his beautiful singing voice in. His moveset continues the trend of fire-breathing dinosaurs, where he has it in both ball and beam form, where he can angle it downwards. Then of course, he has tail swipes, claw slashes, and a jumping stomp called Jurassic Slam. And it seems like the devs also had the same memories as me, since they gave him ice skates for a quick glide. That being said, he's not quick normally. Unsurprisingly, based on his body composition, he's a slow, heavy character. He has to counteract his speed and slow recovery on his attacks with hard hits and armor. Many of his hits can push the opponent back, making it harder to punish him, and if you charge certain attacks like his fire breath, he won't get knocked out of the animation if his opponents hit him while he's doing it. And to go with these grappler-like tools, he has a command grab where he's hungry and eats ya, but then spits you out. The animation where he stuffs his opponent in his mouth is pretty funny. Also, this taunt is just beautiful.
Definitely giving me 90s Rugrats memories. He's a little goofy and slow-moving if you ask me, but he packs a punch with some good moves. I especially love his fiery breath moves, Jurassic Slam, and hungry as a dinosaur. He'd make a great stuffed animal.
I can confirm that would make sense because I used to have one. So even if you've never seen Rugrats, if you like heavy hitters in fighting games, Reptar is mean, green, and ready to wipe your opponent's life bar clean. Number 7, half the roster of Primal Rage. I could just pick one for this entry, and I eventually will, but I gotta say first, Primal Rage is the dinosaur fighting game, so I think the entire thing deserves a shout out for this topic. It was in that tier of the 90s fighting game boom where the game itself was memorable, but it didn't quite garner enough popularity to get a sequel, though it did have a cancelled one. The game has a unique art style, being stop-motion sculptures, and 5 of the 7 monsters on the roster are dinosaurs. However, they're not just dinosaurs, they're gods. The game itself has a surprisingly extensive story that explains that this actually takes place in the future. The Earth was hit by a meteor that destroyed all technological advancements, and in doing so, it woke up 7 gods who were dormant or imprisoned, all of which had the forms of giant monsters, mostly dinosaurs, and they were the gods of certain concepts, like virtue, hunger, or survival. What was left of mankind knew they had to back one of these gods, so now all the big monsters are in a fight for all-out dominance of planet Earth, and that's Earth spelled U-R-T-H. They wanted it to have a caveman vibe, but also be sort of a dystopian future spelling. Of the 5 dinosaurs on the roster, Sauron, Talon, and Diablo all look great, but they are visually similar, so they're not the top rep from the series for me for this list. As I said, they all look cool though. Talon is a giant velociraptor who's very good at claw slashing, Sauron is a rather mobile T-Rex who fires sonic blasts, and Diablo is a palette swap of Sauron who shoots fire instead of Sonic. The creators actually acknowledged how they were planning just to have upright walking dinosaurs from history on the roster, but they noticed how many of them looked similar, so they took some liberties for other designs in the game to avoid having all the dinos look like this trio. The next dino is Armadon, a bipedal triceratops who is spiky and shoots spikes. However, my favorite of the dino designs and gets first place for this game for me, and I guess number 7 on this list, is Vertigo, who is a brontosaurus combined with a cobra, so she's long, giving her the best range, especially with the tail, has a voodoo spell for some hypnosis, and she can spit poison. So I was always a fan of how fantastical they went with this design, both with the moves and how she looks like no other dino design in the game.
She's one evil-looking creature. Snakes creep me out to begin with, and now with the combination of a cobra head on a dinosaur body, you've given me nightmares for a week. I hate to admit she's got moves, and she knows how to use them. Her Venom Smith voodoo spell and Come Slither are among my favorite.
In the end, Primal Rage is one of those games I wish we saw more of. The cancelled sequel was going to do more with prehistoric creatures beyond the dinos and primates, and even some of the humans. I feel we would have seen more designs like Vertigo that combine dinosaurs with other reptiles or other animals if the series continued forward. And you gotta respect that stop motion animation. If we ever get a fighting game animated like this again, call me, it'll be a miracle. Number 6, Diego Brando in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle R. Without giving many spoilers for JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 7, Diego Brando has a stand called Scary Monsters, where it lets him turn into a raptor. Since this form is only accessible during a super move in the JoJo's fighting game, it has a time limit before he has to go back to his human form. But oh, what a time you can have when he's a raptor. You can spin, you can bite, you can tail whip, stomp. This form in general would have been fun to play as the whole time since it's so agile, but I get that they beefed up his mobility and defense because you have to spend super meter to be in it. Its other main trait is you have super armor the whole time, so your opponent will not be able to hit you out of attacks or damage you much, being another reason why this form is limited to being a heat heart attack super move. It can even auto-escape throws in this form. If you're up for 7 seconds of raptor insanity, this attack is for you.
What a cool stand Scary Monsters is. I love the way he switches between human mode and dinosaur mode. When he uses his heart heat attack, he is the sharpest looking dinosaur I've seen. And I'm not just talking about the spikes going down his back. The color combination and pattern on his tail is definitely designer quality. In fact, I used to have a purse that was very similar to it back in the 80s. And what he can do with that tail? I love the backflips and tail whipping he gives to his opponents.
And if you think the rest of his moveset appears to be lacking in dinosaur, it's still hidden in there. He has a command jump called Dinosaur Kinetic Vision, where he can leap higher than normal and use it to cancel out of other attack animations. And he also has this one attack where he summons his tail for an extended hit, also doing a backflip with it out, showing why it's so potent. He can even summon other dinosaurs to back him up, and this attack remains in his Scary Monsters form, so he will make sure the screen reaches its dino quota regardless of what form he's in.
Scary monster! それにどれほどの意味がある。無駄だぞ、無駄！
Number 5, Hauser from Red Earth. Hauser was one of the bosses in Red Earth, which was a fighting game with RPG elements where you pick one of 4 fantasy-style characters and fight a bunch of bosses. You then upgrade your level as you win to get new weapons and skills. There is a 1v1 mode, but you can only pick the heroes, so Hauser was just one of many unplayable characters in the game. While I would have accepted that he was just too awkward to play as, in a random turn of events, he got one playable appearance in 2004 with Capcom Fighting Evolution, infamously one of Capcom's worst crossover games, mainly because it was trying to salvage what was left from a different cancelled crossover. It felt like they picked random characters from a bunch of Capcom fighting games, mostly different Street Fighter games, and the mechanics were just kinda cobbled together. The main appeal of the game is it had one new character, Ingrid, ooh, mysterious, who I did a whole segment on the history of in my Street Fighter 6 wishlist. However, I feel one overlooked aspect of the game is they put 2 Red Earth bosses in there, making it their first and I think only playable appearances ever, Hauser and Hydron, who are giant monsters. The Street Fighter and Darkstalkers reps in the game felt pretty standard, so throwing a curveball with these atypical bodied fighters added some appeal to this otherwise safe roster. Being strange-limbed creatures, their fighting styles are awkward in a fun way. Hauser is a giant T-Rex, making the hitboxes on his attacks disproportionate, so he's got lots of room on his head when he charges forward, but his feet are too big for their own good, where they can just miss an opponent if they're short enough, and the arms, just forget it. They acknowledge how bad they are by having him flail them to no avail. He does his throwing with his teeth and head, and since he's a fantasy dinosaur, he has various forms of flame breath. In fact, I like that his whole design adds just enough elements to make him more than a basic T-Rex. He's got chicken feet, wings that I think are vestigial, that fin or whatever that is on his neck, and the ram's horns. He could pass as a strange dragon or modified lizard if he really didn't want to be a dinosaur.
He looks like he's more brawn than brains. Maybe it's the rock-hard abs and ram's head. His gust flame and volcano breath are fire, literally and figuratively. And his tyrant throws, not bad either.
If anything, Hauser's goofy little moveset is the main reason I ever want to play Capcom Fighting Evolution, even though I really just want to button mash with him for a few matches and then my fix for that game is over. Number 4, Alex from Tekken. I feel Tekken was screwing around when they made Alex, since he had no real reason to exist. I just think the developers thought he'd be funny. There's a boxing kangaroo that premiered on the roster of Tekken 2 named Roger, and for no particular reason, instead of having an alternate costume like most other characters, Roger's alternate is a model swap for Alex the Dinosaur. Alex still has his own arcade mode ending, and his rival fight is against Roger, so he feels separate enough, but my only guess why they did this, besides it being funny, is they needed to give Roger a rival since the total number of rivals on the roster were uneven. Roger was also a secret character to unlock, so it makes sense why they couldn't attach him to a regular character on the roster as a rival. They did give Alex a similar backstory to Roger to explain why they're around the same size, where he was developed in a lab by Kazuya Mishima's corporation, with Kazuya being the antagonist of Tekken 2. Kazuya hoped that Alex would grow into a giant dinosaur weapon of war, because why not? Kazuya was just throwing things at the wall to see what worked, since he was also genetically modifying kangaroos for war, which is how he got Roger, and developing the more typical robots, and the less typical devil powers. And of course, Alex has some kangaroo DNA in his genetic material to loop back to explaining how he has an identical moveset to Roger. That being said, both their movesets were near identical to the wrestler Armor King with a few unique attacks, so Alex was just copying a fighting style that was already copied. What made Alex extra intriguing to me is he never reappeared in a main series game after Tekken 2. When the kangaroo moveset was brought back for Tekken 5 and 6, it was Roger's son, technically the mom, fighting, and they no longer did the model swap for alternate costumes, so just the fact that we couldn't have Alex made me want him back. However, Alex did return in the Tag Tournament spin-off games, where he was continuing his legacy Yoshi now as his own selectable character. And by own selectable character, I mean he had the same moves as the Rogers, with maybe some slight differences, but I could never tell. But hey, his new model was nice and shiny.
I love his royal blue boxing gloves. He looks kinda cute, except when he opens his mouth. Then you see those needle-sharp teeth that are going to chew you up after he pulverizes you with his wind-up punch and bicycle kick, which I have to say are cool to watch.
The updated fighting style was referred to as Commando Wrestling due to the kangaroo's moveset origin being Armor King, but I just like to call it the kangaroo fighting style, since about half of these techniques just seem to be wild animal movements mixed with Looney Tunes. Like, come on, that wind-up punch. There's a clear non-serious angle with these characters, since Alex is just as silly in his arcade mode ending, tying him in with the kangaroos once more. In his Tekken Tag Tournament 2 ending, he tries to intimidate Roger Jr. in the wild, but Jr. just overpowers him and now they're buddies. Or at least, they're working together to find Jr.'s mom since Alex is scared of the child now. The kangaroos also have a house where they act like a human couple, and Alex gets invited in for a meal, but I have no idea what Alex's level of intelligence is compared to the kangaroos. That being said, he has to be smart enough to put on boxing gloves daily.
Hey yo, you win.
Number 3, Yoshi in Super Smash Bros. It's Yoshi, Mario's dinosaur friend that he rides on, who also goes on his own adventures that tend to be less popular, but still are memorable. He comes in green and a variety of other flavors, and with him being a Nintendo icon, he's been in Smash Bros. Since the initial game, doing what he knows best, eating things and laying eggs. He has his signature eat move where he extends his tongue and poops you out in an egg, just like in the Super Mario World games. He can throw an egg bomb like in Yoshi's Island, and he can roll around at the speed of egg, which is a reference to Yoshi's story, and it's funny how that move still remains in the modern Smash Bros. Games due to it being a legacy attack, since Yoshi's story is kind of a forgotten N64 game, but when the move was added in Super Smash Bros. Melee, the game was still recent, coming out 4 years before Melee. No idea what it would be if they made his moveset from scratch today, knowing all of his games, but I think Smash Bros. Helped that egg roll become iconic. His shield is also an egg, which is cute. His last special move is not about eggs or eating, but he does a butt slam, also related to Yoshi's Island, and the rest of his attacks just seem to be standard physical stuff you'd expect from someone with his body composition. Headbutts, tail whips, using those boots. As a dinosaur, Yoshi is probably the least vicious one on the list since he has more cartoony physics and design behind him. He's not less lethal though if you ask all those enemies he can eat in the Super Mario World games.
He's so cute and cuddly when making an adorable pet. I love his speed, aerial moves, and egg throws. He would make an Easter egg hunt more egg-citing, though I'm sure he'd make the Cadbury Bunny a little jealous.
Yoshi in general is just a character that should make you happy from his presence. From his little scurry to his Yoshi voice, you can't help but love seeing him jump around, as long as you're not on the receiving end of a polka-dotted egg.
Game set. This game's winner is Yoshi.
Number 2, Gon in Tekken 3. Modern fighting game guests are very in your face, sometimes they even cost extra, but back in the 90s, fighting game guests were secret and not advertised, sometimes even a joke. You had guys like Akuma in X-Men Children of the Atom, Anita in Marvel Superheroes, Norimaro in Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter, Pepsi Man in Fighting Vipers, Fergus McGovern in the Sega Genesis port of Mortal Kombat 2, I could go on. But one of the most famous examples of this is Gon in Tekken 3. Gon was a manga character that was really only known in Japan at the time, but that didn't matter over in the West, since he seemed to be beloved universally by Tekken fans in his Tekken 3 appearance. People just liked that there was a secret thing in a game, and he looked and played like no other character in the series. To find Gon, you have to beat the final boss of the arcade mode with all available characters. However, that takes a lot of time, so you can do the other secret method of playing the time attack or survival mode, and when you get a high score, enter your initials as Gon, G-O-N, and bada bing, he's unlocked for you now. If I had to summarize his playstyle in one word, it would be short. His attacks might have short range on them, but he makes up for that by being at least half the size of the other characters, so their attacks just whiff against him at the right distances, giving him a chance to counterattack. I'm sure these moves relate to what he did in the manga, but even without the context, they were as fun as hell to use. He's got short-range punches, a tail whip, a chomp, a headbutt, and if you're feeling extra risky, he can wind up his charge forward for extra damage. Though whenever I used it, even when he reaches the opponent, there's still a window for them to hit Gon before he actually attacks, so it was always up to if Gon could duck under their counter-attack. Also, gotta shout out his fart attack. It's so noxious, the opponent crumples immediately if they make contact with it. It's amazingly useful. Silliness aside, it's a tactical tool. So overall, this whole moveset just lets you run around as a little guy.
He looks like a cuddly stuffed toy dinosaur that got possessed. Gives me Rosemary's Baby vibes when she looked into the cradle and saw those demonic eyes. And those cute red boxing gloves. He reminds me of Roger with his rapid pokes and bicycle kick. I'm actually taller than him. That's a rarity. I think I could take him in a match, but I'd have to wear flame-proof clothes to avoid his fire breath.
Also to note, he didn't have the boxing gloves in his series of origin, so it just continues Tekken's trend of putting boxing gloves on fighting animals because it's a quirky thing they do. The whole idea of Gon in this game feels like lightning in a bottle, since the lack of knowledge on who he was did not take away from us wanting to play a secret goofy little guy.
You win.
For number 1, there was no formula, we just went with the coolest, the best dinosaur who has ever dinoed. Number 1, Riptor from Killer Instinct. The foundation of Killer Instinct character designs are movie tropes ranging from action to sci-fi to horror to probably more genres. You got your warrior monks, assassin cyborgs, werewolves, boxers, a Jason and the Argonaut skeleton, I could go on. But with the first game premiering in the mid-90s, there was a little movie that took the world by storm called Jurassic Park. So to capitalize on this, a movie trope the devs wanted to include is the dinosaur revived by science. Even without the potential movie references, dinosaurs are cool, so why not have a lethal raptor in your deadly tournament? Another thing about classic Killer Instinct is it has that 90s edginess to it, where everything is dark and gritty down to the names, like Full Gore the Cyborg. So to follow suit, this raptor was named Riptor, since it likes to rip and tear, or something like that. It reminds me of how juices in the 90s used to have extreme names. Didn't Capri Sun have a Riptide beverage? I feel one of them did, but researching that is not a good use of my time. Riptor was created with genetic material by the corrupt science corporation Ultratech, always creating tools of destruction to sell to the public or to the military. In both the original and rebooted games, Riptor was created with DNA from reptiles and humans, and also some cybernetic enhancements so it can keep up with modern weaponry. Original Riptor seemed to be one of a kind, while rebooted Riptor was part of an experimental industrial line where we followed a specific Riptor unit. Riptor fights for two things: survival and to test its skills against whatever else is in this universe. Though the survival thing didn't exactly work out for it, since Riptor was off the roster of Killer Instinct 2. But still, we have plenty of Riptor action from the first game and the reboot to see what made her so deadly. She's got claw slashes, she's got biting, she's got fire, and most importantly, she's got mobility. Ever since the original game, the thing that amazed me most about Riptor is whenever she goes all cartoon physics on ya with her air attacks. She does the Liu Kang bicycle kick. Where else can you see a dinosaur do that?
I love this dinosaur, but what's not to love? A genetically engineered badass raptor with intellectual prowess, great problem-solving skills, and the ability to rip her opponent to shreds with those stunning blue energy-enhanced claws. I wonder if they glow in the dark. And fire-breathing, too? Now, technically, isn't that a dragon, though? And the way she uses her tail to impale her opponents, she's the total package.
Because she's so unpredictably vicious, having speed on that can be scary, except for when she's funny. Don't know how to feel about that. The fire breath is also one of those things where I'm like, oh, she was already crazy fast, now she can burn us up from a distance? It's not fair. Riptor is one of those characters I've always associated with 90s fighting games since she was effortlessly cool, and we were able to get her back in the 2010s thanks to Killer Instinct's new life. So for being an icon that only talks and screeches, Riptor is the #1 dinosaur in fighting games.
Winner! Awesome victory!
Now, what did you think? Were all these dinosaurs a Jurassic delight, or were some of them prehistorically poor reps? And what are some of your favorite fighting game dinos, whether we discussed them or not? Let us know in the comments. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and we will see you in the next video.